The full moon in Aries is on its way.
And may the stars be with you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mel LaFera, and I'm an astrologer, tarot consultant, all-around creative from sunny San Diego, California. And today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Aries, which happens on October 6th, 2025. Now, before we get started here, always remember, take what resonates and leave the rest, because only you know you best. So today in this video, we are going to talk about the general significations for the Aries full moon that is coming up October 6th, 2025 at 8:47 p.m. Pacific time. So we'll do a little treatment on what's to be expected for the general energies as a whole. And then I will go into what that might look like in more detail for each of the 12 signs. So hopefully you'll stick with me through the general bit, but if you want to skip ahead, you can use the time mark if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to this in podcast form to get to your sign. I recommend watching your rising sign first, but your sun sign may also apply. So let's talk about Aries, right? We have a full moon coming up, and a full moon is always about something climaxing, something culminating. The moon is bright and noticeable in the sky. When it's a full moon, we can't help but notice. And an Aries full moon can really put that heat under our collar, right? You know, you think about a full moon being the time when the hospitals are lit up, and they used to talk about lunatics coming out, right? Luna being the moon. Well, Aries being a sign that is ruled by Mars does have that extra critical vibe, I guess we could say. It wouldn't surprise me if the hospitals were lit up during an Aries full moon, because it does have crisis energy to it. Now, that doesn't mean we're all going to be running around in a crisis, or things are going to be on fire, or we're going to be in survival mode. Although those things can happen for some people in some situations, because that's the nature of Aries. But at the end of the day, Aries is pinging off of Libra right now, right? Because we're in Libra season. So we're getting this climax that is centered within both Aries energy and Libra energy. Aries energy being Mars ruled, Libra energy being Venus ruled. So when this time of year is always very lit up in the relationship department, right? Because Mars and Venus are coming to the forefront. And Mars is the planet that is what I want. The egoic energy is a little different than maybe the ego of the sun and the self and the identity. But, it's that driving force of passion that is individual, especially Aries in nature. That's like, I'm passionate about this. I am rising forth for myself. I'm going to go out and do this. I'm going to take a risk. And Libra's over there going, but what about others? How do I balance it so that I feel like I am maybe not taking on too much for myself, or I can get other people involved and they bring something to the table, or just feeling that sense of Mars, Aries stress versus Libra unification and ease. So there could be a tension between those two subjects. This is also cardinal fire, right? Cardinal fire and cardinal air. And cardinal signs are known for action. This is creation and action-oriented energy. This is when things are being pushed forth, right? Cardinal has a burst-like quality to it. And the equinox just happened. So we have this pivot energy that is happening. So we might all be pivoting in some way right now, but it's not as extreme as Capricorn and Cancer pivots, which, solstice pivots are a little more extreme by nature. But this can be just a turning point that is having us leap head first towards something. Aries is famous for new beginnings. What beginning energy is culminating to the surface right now, or rising up in our consciousness, or being lit up to us through our intuition? It's also this independent initiative versus coming together on a team or with other people, as I stated earlier. And so we're going to notice that as a theme here. Now, what's interesting about this full moon, I'm going to go ahead and share our chart so we can get a view of this. So if you're seeing the screen, this is a chart for October 6th, 8:47 p.m. on Pacific time, set for San Diego, California. And I titled this full moon Strategically Daring. So why is that? Well, one of the big pieces of this full moon, as I stated earlier, is Aries is ruled by Mars. So what's Mars doing in the sky? Well, Mars is now in Scorpio and has been there for about a couple weeks now, maybe a little bit more. I'm a little fuzzy on the time, but it's 10 degrees in. Mars moves about 1 degree every 2 days. So we're looking at, roughly, do the math, a little bit of time. But Mars in Scorpio is, I like to call it Ninja Mars, because Ninja Mars is in its nighttime domicile. This is where Mars is very strong. Not only is it in its own sign, but it's in its own sign sect-wise, because Mars is a nighttime planet. So it's even more at home in Scorpio than we would say that it is in Aries. So we have this very strong Mars. And if we know one thing about Scorpio, Scorpio is very strategic. Scorpio is laying out plans. Scorpio is feeling empowered, or empowerment energies are running through. The emotional current is charged right now. The spiritual current is charged. There might be just sync-ups that are happening that feel a little destined in some way, or just things are just kind of coming together and we're ready and willing to go for it. And we have the emotional stamina and the creative stamina and sort of that consistent flow to be like, okay, yeah, this is what's in motion and I am rolling with it. Now, one thing you can see in this chart here is that, Mars is not too long ago had made a connection with Pluto, a square to Pluto. And that was, I believe, last week. I should have this in front of me as I'm doing this, but I believe it was last week on September 24th, to be exact. And Mars squaring Pluto is no joke. It brings a lot of energy to the collective sphere, where there's a lot of tension and drive and destruction that could be going on and uprising. But it also has this quality that really puts us in this turning point of where are we transforming? What do we need to change in our life? How is our independent initiative switching gears? And what do we got to do to go through that, go down the rabbit hole and get to the other side? So Mars has been through some things, and I think that is going to affect this Aries full moon. And we can't help but, point out that both Neptune is still over here in Aries and Saturn was here earlier. But we have been doing a lot of work in Aries, in the sign of Aries, not with just Saturn and Neptune there, but also with not the full moon being this moment, but the eclipses that have taken place in Aries for the last couple years and Libra. So this polarity in our charts and these houses and whatever house topics these lie in your chart, this is not your first rodeo in this area. So there might be a culmination of some time past that is seen here too, because we are coming out of eclipse season from the last couple lunations. So what's culminating in this new energy that is rushing forth and this strategical daring towards, a new beginning or a particular direction. It's can have a lot of backstory to it that finally gets the momentum to make some moves in this area. So what's interesting about this full moon too is that we always want to look at the succession. What's the moon doing before the opposition to the sun? What is it doing after? So before, we have a sextile to Pluto over here in Aquarius. Then the moon opposes the sun in Libra, And then we'll go on to square Jupiter. So, a square to Jupiter is also going to push us forward. There's going to be some sort of big growth momentum. There can be a turning point around our growth stories, our intuition, what it is that we care about, what we're putting time and energy and love into. Care just in general, when we think about Cancer as a caregiving sort of sign, a nourishment sign, moving towards what nourishes us for our own growth. But it can feel like a growth spurt is taking place during this time period. And so we're pushing towards that growth and that change. And we might be working through insecurities right now, right? With the moon ruling that Jupiter, which is ruled by that Mars. So if we were a little insecure and had some, emotional issues to deal with, we now have this really charged Mars that is like, what? Well, let's just get in there. Let's just do this, let's push through. So we also have Mercury over here on our side too, because Mercury moves into Scorpio the same day that the full moon perfects. And as you can see, Mercury is also moving to the square with Pluto. So we have an intensity of mind that is taking place where, we have intense mental energy. We have intense emotional energy. There is, transformative actions taking place. We're focused on truth, what matters most. And we might have this alchemical mindset where our minds are, something we're fixated on can change us. Sometimes when we're so fixated, we can actually make changes in life because we know what we want and we're going to do what it takes to get there. But also if there's things that need to change in the mind, this might be that turning point that's like, okay, well, change your mind, change your life type of thing. So let's rearrange the perspective, so to speak. So things like mind power and the power of the mind can come up. So that magician quality, intense focus, conversational persuasion, if we need to persuade ourselves or other people to do a particular thing, or we might be the ones persuaded. This can come up. But also penetrating insights where you get just that one thing that you're like, aha, yes, this is the thing. Or there can be transformative news that comes in that causes some sort of friction, right? Because if Aries can be crisis or survival sometimes, or also these new beginnings, sometimes we're delivered the message that gets that started. So Mercury is going to be a major player here in this lunation. So be aware of what comes through in message form. Now, we've already talked about Mars being the ruler of this lunation, but let's also point out Venus, because Venus is behind our Libra sun, right? And so the Libra sun is a position of the sun in fall. And Venus is also in fall in Virgo. So where the moon and the Mars energy is very strong, a lot of hands down, Mars is sort of ruling the game of this full moon. But there is this Venus quality that's coming in. She's passing over the South Node, which will be exact on, let's see, on Saturday, October 4th. And Venus going over the South Node, this is dropping off energy, essentially, of where, certain relational dynamics or stylistic tendencies or unification principles, or those, having to have everything so perfect and coming together in this what's the word I'm looking for? This aesthetically pleasing way, Venus is going to be dropping some things down that South Node. So if we have to get less about those practicalities of maybe relating or mundane routines or how things come together, and be more focused on our principal and deepest desires and our feelings, because sometimes we can get lost in, cultivating the minutia that really sometimes we just need to go for it, right? But those two are essentially coming together, and so they will be the stars of the show. And we will be focusing on these placements when we go into our individual signs. So now before we get into each of the signs, I just want to share that we are using, when I say we, I mean me, the Tarot of Her deck, which is my deck that I co-created with Sarah Jane Lambert. So it's going to be featured today in our horoscope segment. But we are also getting ready to kickstart our second edition here in October. It's going to be a big month. So if you like the deck and you like what you see in this video, come on over to tarot.If.com, where you can sign up for our mailing list. And hopefully our Kickstarter campaign pre-launch page is going to be up soon, which you can save that as well. So Tarot of Her. Also, I'll be using the Poasis Oracle to pair with it because I think it's a lovely pairing. So let's not go on over to Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. So for the Aries and Aries risings, this is a first house full moon. The full moon is lighting you up, right? And it's pinging across to Libra in the 7th house, and then it's flanked on the side by Mars and Scorpio in the 8th and Venus in Virgo in the 6th. And so I love these cards that came up for you, Aries. The Sage of Blooms in last quarter position with the Heal card. And so the term that came to me was empowered healing, right? The moon is a healing force. The first house is a point of our personality, but also a point of our physical vessel. And maybe how those two meet, how we move and operate and drive our bus in the world is a very first house activity. And you are ruled by Mars. So Mars being in a strong position means that you're going to be in a strong position. Although Mars is in the 8th house and in aversion to your ascendant, there could be some blind spots with, where you're driving or how, the vision itself. It's not that it's flawed in some way, but, there might be a turning point of leadership, individuality, doing things yourself, that sense of individual purpose. But how do we come together? The 8th house is a place of collaboration and shared resources. And, the sun is pinging off your 7th house of partnerships and other people. So, it might not be a one-person show. There can be other people involved. But either way, it does ping into the fact that this is a time to really, dig deep into your sense of self-leadership. And in order to have that self-leadership, there is this healing that is happening underneath, especially with Mars being in Scorpio in the 8th house, which is a very psychological realm too. And you got Saturn dancing over there in your 12th house. So there might be this clearing out of the closet of some emotional material so that you can become this empowered, strong, passionate person that knows what they want, is willing to go out there and get it. So now is the time, but don't shrug off how other people can play a role in your life to help you get there. Now for the Taurus and Taurus risings, we have this full moon in the 12th house, which is sort of our letting go, our isolation house, where we're kind of biding our time and doing some of that spiritual work. And it's pinging off the sun in Libra in the 6th house, which is our mundane reality and our daily work and our health. And then flanked by Mars over there in the 7th house of partnerships and Venus in the 5th house of enjoyment and having a good time and using your creative skills, and children as well. So I like these cards here. We have Temperance in the last quarter phase, which looks very 12th house in many respects, right? She's sitting with her owl in what looks like some lungs underground and just reading a book, right? There's sort of this gestation quality going on. And then there is this Earth card coming up. And so I wrote down tempering manifestation. And so my partner loves to say everything in moderation, even moderation. So there might be a turning point around what moderation looks like and patience and how much patience you give something. Earth is very patient, right? Think about Earth signs. Taurus is very patient as well. So how much patience do you put in, and is there a turning point of patience to, a turning point of something that you've been sitting with and finding the right blend of for a while? And, there might be this point of releasing earthly efforts and work dynamics, right? Because the 12th house can be this place of letting go, especially for Aries, for your own interest, for your own self, your own needs. And especially if you're working with other people or people pleasing to get things done, that might come up too, where it's more about, okay, well, what do I want? And then where do I have to sacrifice to be more in balance? Especially if this is like I said earlier with the Aries story of a longer road, because this isn't your first rodeo in this, 6th, 12th house space. So this might be sort of this, coming to roost. I don't know if that's a saying or not, but for this 12th house energy of letting something go or moving on, or, starting a new manifestation direction for your art and for your flow that's based more on yourself. Not entirely, but enough to know what people you fit in and what's a balance for your health, right? Because at the end of the day, like if you don't have the energy or, it's creating too much stress for you, this is a time to maybe make cuts in partnerships. And, especially since Venus might be sucking away that pleasure center of the 5th house with the South Node there. Or you might be reminded, you're like, why? Nothing's really fun right now. How do I get back to that? So this is a turning point around there. So definitely allow yourself some rest and to get a time out, and, get into your flow before you go on and start manifesting and hauling those heavy loads that you're used to carrying. Now for the Gemini and Gemini risings, we have that full moon in the 11th house of friendships and groups and our general aspirations and wishes in life. And it pings on that sun in Libra in the 5th house of, fun, recreation, children, creativity, art, passion projects. And then it's flanked by that Mars that's working it in the 6th house, right, of daily routine and health and, getting your work schedule and your work in order. And then the 4th house of home and family is where Venus is hanging out. So I love these cards. We got the 8 of Roots in the first quarter phase with play. And to me, this is all about loving what you do. So especially if you're looking ahead at the grander scheme of things and you're like looking into your 11th house and wishing on that star and like, this is what I want my life to look like. This is what I'm inspired by, what I'm passionate by, and I'm ready to start working on it, right? First quarter phases for this 8 of Roots card, this is about a turning point where it's like, I have to take action in this area. And where you're taking action is in play and having a good time and playing with your craft, making projects and working on things that are fun for you and that you feel a sense of like inner calling for, or something your intuition might be pushing for, or maybe even something that you can do at home, right? Venus is hanging out in the 4th house. So maybe there's this connection between work and being able to work from home, or doing what you love in a more leisurely environment so that you have that freedom to sort of, play around a little bit. But either way, I feel like this is a fabulous full moon to get really in touch with the work you want to do, mastering your craft and making it fun. Because isn't that what life's about at the end of the day, is having a good old time? I mean, you are Mercury ruled, and a youthful folly is important to stay in touch with. So definitely make sure you are loving what you do, Gemini. All right, so for the Cancer and Cancer risings, we got a little bit of a different message for us Cancers here. I'm a Cancer, full full disclaimer. Um, and so we're having this full moon in Aries in our 10th house of career and legacy and goals and ambitions. And it is pinging on that sun in Libra in the 4th house of home and family and emotional foundation. And then on one side, we got Mars over there in the 5th house, which is children and leisurely pursuits and passion projects and creativity. And then busy Venus and Virgo over there in the 3rd house, which is more about our local environment, dealing with our schedules, our siblings, just all the things that come at us. I like to think about the 3rd house being, it's a place of learning and also going back and forth, but it also serves as a bit of a juggling act. If you have a lot of 3rd house activations, or if you have a lot of 3rd house planets, you learn to perfect the juggle because there's a lot going on, right? So that really plays into our cards here of the 5 of blooms in the waxing crescent phase, and then this hold card where we see she's holding it's almost like Atlas holding the egg world on her back. And so what came to me was holding stress. If you're at a point of culmination with ambition and goals and all that you want to do in this world, how do you learn to hold it all, right? Learning to hold more can be a valuable and valiant skill, especially with Aries, right? Aries is a conqueror. It has the confidence to go and do what needs to be done. There could be, you're dealing with combat. Maybe you have to go up against an authority figure of some sort, or someone doesn't agree with you and you got to hold your own here. Or there's competitiveness where, it's a big world out there, and to be that success and to go for what you want, you gotta be competitive and, hold your own among other people that are holding their own. So there could be this need to step up and strive for more, especially around something that you really love or you're passionate about with, Mars over there in the 5th house. Or if you have children that, is creating stress and they're running around and playing a lot and you're like, how do I deal with these? But you just kind of got to hold your own here. So there might be a lot of change going on in the work and home dynamic and in your career dynamic right now. But whatever's happening, know that even if it's stressful, you have what it takes to hold it, especially if you have some sort of release or outlet with that 5th house Mars, so that you can, turn the release valve and let off some steam occasionally so that you can balance it. Because I don't think the stress is fully here. Waxing crescent isn't about, I'm in the stress completely. It's more like entertaining the fact that there is going to be competition. There is going to be a lot of carrying. There could be, back and forth that is stressful, that is coming your way so you can strive for what you want. So exploring what that looks like and then holding it so that you can take on more in this world. All right, for the Leo and Leo risings, we've got this full moon in the 9th house of, philosophy, higher learning, our vantage point in life. It's a very spiritual place when we think about religion, spiritual philosophies, but also just like expansion and seeing our life from a higher, viewpoint. It's also a place of broadcasting and publishing, and like me doing this podcast is very 9th house energy, right? Especially when it's pinged off of the 3rd house over there with the sun over there in Libra, which is this, learning place, this disseminating of information. And so we have this back and forth energy being lit up in the place of the mind. With Mars over there in the 4th house of home and family, and Venus in the 2nd house of finances and resources. So it can be very heady, but it's also, flanked by some very practical things of like, what's my foundation? What am I feeling on the inside? What motivates me from a very base level? And what are my values? And what are my resource needs? because we have the Six of Roots here in the first quarter phase paired with the Open card. And I really love this. I wrote down open to abundance. So I'm loving the image of that open mind, right? It's, we see this woman and the door is opening to her third eye. And that seems very ninth, third house energy to me. Because how can you play with the idea of maybe being more generous or accepting more from others? That sort of give and take energy that of abundance that the Six of Roots brings up. And so there might be this learning to balance a give and take of resources and opening your mind to what that could look like. But it is just that. It's opening the mind. It's about getting perspective around the turning points that are coming to your resources and what you feel comfortable with on that, that give and take space. I feel like it's might be more about the generous side of what you're willing to give others, because it's a pushing off point. So you might have to create a little more space for what it is that you're able to not generate per se, but generate could be a good word, but just offer. Especially when it comes to maybe family or your home life, or even your talents, and being able to put your talents more out there, or to have a turning point to, your innate gifts and how they can bring in money. And maybe your mind has to do a little shifting around that so you can see the expansion opportunities that are coming to your resources right now. So it feels very heady and it's very perspective based, what is going to be shifting, but it does play out in more of a practical, resource based, abundant, prosperous area of your life, Leo. All right, for the Virgo and Virgo risings, we have this full moon in the 8th house, which I like to call the 8th house the kitchen sink house, right? Because it's the house of death. It's bring that one up first. It's a house of death. Most importantly, it's the house of transition, where things are transitioning. It's like a butterfly in a cocoon, right? It's in goo state and it's about to be a different form. So we have this transitioning taking place with the full moon, and it's opposing the sun over there in Libra in the 2nd house of finances and resources and values and, self-esteem, self-worth. And it's flanked by that Mars in the 3rd house of learning and back and forth, dealing with your schedule and holding a lot of things, or siblings, the local neighborhood and environment. And then Venus over there in your 1st house of self. So there is this, it was an interesting card pairing that I felt was very paradoxical in some way, because here we have the star card in its full moon phase. And the star is all about this hope and this inspiration for what's to come, and what could be, and looking out into the distance and being attached to a vision, that is greater than you. And then, sort of this renewal that holds space for that. But then it's paired with this struggle energy as this, Sisyphus rolls this head up the hill. And so I really just wrote down hope versus struggle, especially during this time of change that is happening for you. And so when I talk about, this paradoxical element, can inspiration and hope live in the same place, live amongst struggle? Especially when you have to deal with life's changes and things that might be out of your control, because the 8th house definitely can bring that up sometimes. It's not configured to the ascendant. So other people's resources, just things that you just don't have any say in, might have a say in your life. And so how can you hold that vision or hold out for something that is like beneficial or silver linings, knowing that you're in the struggle zone right now? And so It could also be if you're in things that are a little trying, especially when it comes to money, because these are money houses, the second and the eighth. So maybe there's a little struggle with finances and resources and, wrapping your head around that and getting a better balance on that side of your life. How can you hold a vision of better things to come when you're in the thick of it? So that might be part of it too, right? Because Mars over there in the third house, in the place of the mind, can be in Mercury there as well, squaring Pluto. It can be very charged mentally. So if your mind is very charged and you're already a mercurial person, since Virgo is ruled by Mercury, how do you get your mind in a solid place that is empowered and confident and is holding your value and your worth so that you can stay aligned with your vision, even if there is a time that you have to sort of, struggle with and feel like you're pushing uphill? So hang in there, Virgos. You got this. All right, for the Libra and Libra risings, let's take this in. A little water break. So, like the Aries risings, the Libra risings are also having an angular full moon with the moon in Aries in the seventh house of partnership. So it's lighting up the partnership dynamic. And it's pinging off that sun over there in the first house of this, first house of self. And so this can be very much a relational full moon when it feels like, I don't want to say other people are coming at you. It's not so much that, but it does have this vibe of like other people are coming to the surface, and how do they factor in to your reality, right? Because Mars is over there in the second house of resources and finances. Venus is over there in the 12th house of sort of the sacrificial place, letting go, taking more of a spiritual view, maybe a retreat. And so it could be a timeout from others and a timeout from partnerships, or looking at partnerships in a new way. Or maybe new partnerships are coming in to be entertained. So what's interesting is the card combination of the Warrior of Leaves in this balsamic state, paired with the leap card. I love this card, just like leaping into nothingness. And the body is all like discombobulated, like a contortionist almost. And so I wrote down simply going for it. What does going for it mean? Well, I feel like there's this idea of learning to leap by not overthinking it. Maybe not having too much strategy, because sometimes we could just lay it all out. So like, this is the step to that, to that, to that, to that. And you see it so, you're so married to the plan or the vision or the way that you see things or the perspective of doing things. So maybe how can you integrate that perspective, hold it, but leap towards what you want, knowing that part of it's just instinct. Part of it's going to be variable. You're taking a risk in some way, which could be a risk on others. It could be a risk on yourself, right? The seventh house can also be just decision-making energy when you're making a choice in life, or you're signing a contract and you're gonna do it. So it's integrating what you know enough to take a risk. And it also might be about trusting what you are to leap towards or to dive into without fighting it. It could be about putting down the fight that had you going back and forth of whether or not to do it and to make the leap. But either way, this is a heavy partnership zone. This is a heavy decisive zone that is turning a corner for you to, trust and take a leap in life, especially around something that you value or something that you find worth it. And there might be this sacrificial letting go quality that has to happen in order for you to make those moves. All right, Scorpio and Scorpio risings. Hello, fellow Scorpio risings out there. If you're a listener to the podcast, you know well that I am a Scorpio rising. I say it all the time. So here we have us Scorpio risings with the full moon in the 6th house of work and service and health and ritual and, mastering our crafts, right? I always think the 6th house is an extension of the 5th, because if you have the creativity and inspiration of the 5th house, where does that authentic expression go? Well, it's got to be mastered and put into day-to-day use and practice. And that is what the 6th house is all about. And so it's pinging off that sun in the 12th house of Libra, which is our, retreat and letting go. Technically, this is the time of year that us Scorpio risings could be taking a step back and integrating more and, retreating. But it's always so funny. You get a full moon in both signs, and one's like, work, 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 do it, do it, do it. And the other's like, I need a break. I need a break. Which I definitely have a love-hate relationship with that going on in my own life right now. But it is bringing up this, what do we work for? What are we in service to? And from a spiritual perspective, but also what do we have to let go of and sacrifice and maybe work through some fears? Because if you see the cards here on one side, we've got the fledgling of leaves in the last quarter phase paired with fear. And the 12th house, 12th house energy can very much be about the skeletons in the closet, the unconscious, subconscious impulses that are, drive our lives from an underlying place that can rule us either through anxiety, sometimes depression, just straight up fear responses. But this is the time to break through anything that might, it's, what did I write down? I wrote down a new perspective on fear, because the fledgling of leaves, this is all about beginner's mind energy. And it is not a new beginner's mind, it's the last quarter, right? So we might know new things. We might have known new things and new perspectives to put in place for a long time, but when is it going to be put in? Well, now is the time to do it. Why? Because Mars is in our 1st house of self. Scorpio risings ruled by Mars. So Mars in Scorpio is a big boost of energy for Scorpio rising. So we have to take advantage. This is an empowerment transit. So if there's fear that is driving the bus in any way, this is a time to face it. Face what could be scary. Face those shadows. Integrate the knowledge that you know and that you're learning so you can tackle life head on. This is Mars in the 1st house. This is a new level of being vigilant and honest in your life. And if you do learn something, because the fledgling can deliver messages, and, messages might come up during this time that do encapsulate some fear, or those anxiety responses come up. Just work through it, integrate it, and turn it over in a new way. Like old Scorpio rising might have been like, oh man, what am I going to do with that? Or I'm so overwhelmed by that, or, whatever, fill in the blank of whatever your relationship to fear might be. But this new example could be like, yeah, that comes up, but you know what? I have a new mindset. I have a new perspective, and I'm able to handle it like a champ, right? Because at the end of the day, you got Venus over there in the 11th house lighting up your greater ambitions and your hopes and wishes in life. And if you want to realize those and manifest those and have the support of the community and other people and being social and in groups, and getting your message out there, it's essentially, you got to work through any type of barrier, especially subconscious, unconscious, fearful, those skeletons in the closet that might be blocking you from that. So this is the time to own that Mars and Scorpio power. All right, Sagittarius and Sag risings. Ah, man, I pulled these for you and I kind of loved it. I was like, can I be a Sag rising for the full moon? Is that cool? Luckily my partner is, so I will live vicariously through him. But so here we have the full moon in the 5th house of creativity and good times and pleasure and joy and leisure and, just the fun things in life. And then it is pinging off of the sun over there in the 11th house of groups, friends, those wishes I keep talking about. And it's flanked by Mars over there in the 12th house. So you're kind of behind the scenes Mars right now. You might be working on things in the background or even taking a break from what you're working on. Especially since you've been so busy with Venus over there in the 10th house of career and professional life, and working on your goals and getting people together to support them. And so we have these cards of the Three of Stems in the waxing gibbous phase and compassion. And so I wrote down feeling for others, or maybe even feeling with others. So this is a time of connection and like feel good energy, right? And Mars might be tipping towards the compassionate centers of your 12th house here, and Mercury over there as well. I wouldn't necessarily think of Mars as being a very compassionate person per se, or archetype. But in the 12th house, that is where sort of that sacrifice, compassion, more of that collective consciousness lives. And so you might be driven to, tap into that side and how it relates to your friendships and your social dynamics. Maybe you're helping a friend in need, right? You're giving your time and energy so that you can lift other people up. Or being more aware of cultivating acceptance and connection too. Like maybe that is part of feeling camaraderie, is accepting others, accepting yourself, accepting people into a group or a team, and doing so with joy. Three of Stems is all about celebration. And so there's a celebration that comes with this compassionate place and being driven by compassion, and giving and maybe generosity, which you're no stranger to. Sagittarius is one of the most generous signs of the zodiac. So it feels like a really uplifting full moon that also has a little bit of a purpose and a sweet spot to it. It's not just leisure or fun for the sake of it. There's emotional goodwill behind it, and striving to be help others out and be a good force in the world. All right, for the Capricorn and Capricorn risings, we have that full moon. We got an angular full moon happening with the moon in the 4th house of home and family and that emotional foundation, the ancestral world. And then it's pinging off the sun in the 10th house of career, goals, ambitions, sense of authority or dealing with authority figures. And on one side, we have Mars over there in the 11th house of friendships and groups, and associations, and also maybe humanitarian pursuits. And then Venus is in the 9th house of higher learning, of our spiritual and religious lives, and just really just an expansion place, an expanding perspective, and belief, dealing with belief systems and maybe balancing out or harmonizing belief systems in some way, especially since she just went over the South Node. So there's a lot of work to be done or releasing in the area of, potentially belief systems or dogma that one carries. And if it's focused on down there at the bottom, right, of our charts, there in the 4th house, there can be, it's stimulating where, Capricorn, where you come from, where, what's your roots. They might be highlighted at this time. And so I love these cards coming together of the Warrior of Leaves in first quarter and support. Support, Mars, Mercury in the 11th house. I love these two together. So I wrote down calling in support, right? Because you might be holding a lot in the space of the 4th house, right? The 4th house is very private. A lot of people don't see what's going on in our 4th house, maybe our significant others or the family that we live in. But you might be holding a lot or charging through some very personal issues, but Mars is giving you energy from the community. And so if you're feeling driven by, if something's bubbling up within you that you feel passionate about, that you want to drive towards, right? Because the Warrior of Leaves is like, I have ideas, I have a plan, I am working towards things. Also, I'm a fighter, it's very Martian energy, very Aries energy, can be fighting. There might be this energy of fight that is rising up within you. And, we can go our own way and fight against the world, or we can take that fight and take that directive and take that ambition, that raw ambition, put it into action and get the support that's needed to, move towards that vision. Like, stay aligned, stay in motion, but it's not a one-person show. It's like, no, I've got the full support. The team is lifting me up. And so really you can move towards your ideas and your goals right now, but be open to the community and the people that you can get to really support what it is that down deep that you're driven to do, because it is a time to make moves in your career and your your overall legacy. Like, what do you want to be known for? Well, now's the time to move towards it and get the help that you need to do it, because others are there to support you. All right, for the Aquarius and Aquarius risings, we have that full moon in the 3rd house, our heady house, our local environment house, our ideas house, our learning classes, taking in information, sharing ideas. And so you're probably going to find this full moon is very busy because it's pinging off the 9th house. And these are active houses. They're perspective houses, but they're also energy is moving around and you're going here, you're going there, you're reading this, you're doing that, so prepare to be busy. And on one side, we have Mars over there in the 10th house. So you might be busy working on a career goal or some ambition that you have, or, getting your strategy in place and feeling like you have more authority and are ready to put yourself out there, right? In a very public way. You're like, okay, I'm working towards this. I am determined. And so maybe I got to gather all the information. Maybe I got to fill out all the forms. Maybe I got to, get my big plan and my big perspective going. Draw it out from a big picture view, filling out all the things you have to, and then keeping your eye on the prize with the overall goal. Well, Venus is over there dealing with, oh my God, we're doing with some changes. How do I feel about this? Yeah, I feel like I want to do this, but what's the logistics look like, and how comfortable am I moving towards change? Which is a very 8th house thing. And dealing with other people's resources as well, maybe getting other people on board that are able to contribute what they have in order for you to realize your goal. And so I love these cards. We have the Innocent in waxing gibbous phase, and we have the Abundance card. Who doesn't want to see the Abundance card? And so I wrote very simply, stepping towards abundance. This is about taking a leap and trusting your instincts right now to move towards something better and more fulfilling in your life. And a very 9th house thing to say with the sun there in Libra is that you have to have faith. When you're stepping off the cliff into the unknown and chasing the rainbow, you have to have faith that your cup is going to be filled and you're going to, land somewhere on the other side, especially if you're starting a new journey in some way. Because, Pluto's hanging over there in your 1st house, just getting started. So you're on like a 20-year rebirth period, and basically it's all getting started now. So yeah, go for it, Aquarius. This is a time to really take a leap and let that drive and that passion that Mars has in your 10th house really carry you, because this is a time to buckle down, get your plan, feel solid about what you're doing, put it out there, and get things moving. Now, last but not least, we have our Pisces and Pisces risings with the full moon in Aries in the 2nd house of resources, finances, self-worth, self-esteem, our, innate talents, possessions, assets, things along those lines. And also values, I think it's it's a place where it's lit up, essentially what we hold and what we want to acquire is best when it is aligned with what we value, and that is where worth is not just for ourselves, getting our own value, right? And acquiring what it is we value. Because at the end of the day, we want what we hold dear, right? And so this full moon might be lighting up some of those aspects for you. And it's pinging the sun over there in the 8th house, which is this transitional energy. This is a time of year where you're cocooning in and you're going through changes and you're navigating a psychological landscape and balancing out, some of your deeper desires. And by doing so, it moves you to make changes. And how you move through life, how the give and take that you're involved in, and, intimacy and other people in your life and what you share with them and what you don't, boundaries. And then we have the Mars over there in the 9th house of, you're sort of on this expansion crusade right now, and you're picking up new, you're honing into your belief systems and you're charged by them right now. And you're charged by what it is that you see for yourself in a bigger vision. And then there's also this relationship story that you might be going through relationship changes, or there might be certain partnerships that are draining you or dragging you down, or there's elements of them that need to be harmonized and balanced. So changes can happen. And so the cards are very poignant here. We have the Tower in the first quarter phase backed with guide. And so I wrote down guided to tear it down. So as I said earlier, there may be new values that are lighting up for you during this full moon. And so if something's been on rocky ground, it can feel like it is about to erupt. And you might have to take action to dismantle it, and because you have a grander vision, or you see other things, or you want to move on in your life. So if you are supported by this higher vision or something greater than you, or you have spiritual motives, like this is the time to actively tear it down, actively liberate yourself and make changes in your life, because you're guided to dismantle right now, so that you can acquire the things that really matter to you. And get yourself in a better place so that you can work towards the vision that you feel really driven towards right now. So it might feel a little daunting to be guided to tear things down, but if you know that it's time, know that it's almost like one of those things where if you let things go, or you, destruct something, it's like the universe hates a vacuum, right? So it's going to fill it with something. So chances are, if you dismantle, you'll be guided to the next thing that is to take its place. So there's this trust element and this faith element, which is very 9th house energy. So it's almost like destruction and faith are one in one. And so by doing so, you're going to be guided to what's next. So do what you got to do, Pisces. All right. Well, that was a mouthful. And so, to tie it all together here, Aries full moons, they don't mess around. This is go time. This is big energy. This is, our strategical risks that we're taking and feeling energized and making moves in life. We're on the other side of eclipse season, and we've had to let go of old aspects of our physical reality. We are integrating a lot of spiritual components and clearing out our spiritual closet, which will be a whole thing to, to talk about here, which I will be talking about here shortly. Just heads up, my Energetic Principles podcast is returning with guests starting October 2nd. There's going to be an 8-episode series that is going to be centered around different aspects of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction that is getting closer and closer in the skies, which will perfect in February of 2026. But during this fall, they're going to be retrograde in Pisces, and we're going to be doing a lot of clearing out. And really the day after this airs, the first program with Brian Almana will be out, and we're going to be talking about this clearing out portion of the Pisces energy and Saturn and Neptune retrograde there. So all this like clearing out so that we can really step into this newness of the Aries beginnings and what's culminating for us now. You know, Aries has definitely picked the low-hanging fruit. We're inspired and passionate in the moment, and that inspiration can give us the spark. But there still is a lot that has to be done to get us to that full-on initiation that is coming to us at the end of winter here. So, yeah, take in what happens now, be energized by it, put your moves together, but know that it's always a seed. It's leading to the new thing, but there's still much more to come. So, all right, definitely check out the podcast. It's coming back soon. You're going to love it. I know you are. And check out Tarot of Her, because that is coming soon as well. That is getting ready to launch at the end of October, and I'm putting that all together. We have an expansion pack coming. I'm so excited about it. I cannot wait. I also have the Lunar Voices form still up if you want to fill that out and share with me what your personal moon is. I'm collecting data on the moon in general, so check that out. And if you like this program, hit like, hit subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you're feeling for this Aries full moon, and if anything that I've said resonates with you, or if you want to add something that you feel about this full moon that you're noticing or see coming up. I'd love to hear it. And if you're watching or listening to the podcast version, leave a review. Let other people know about this program and energetic principles so that I can be seen in a wider sphere, because I dropped off for some time, and you know what that does to an algorithm. It sinks a girl down to the dregs, to the below. And so I need engagement. So if you could help me engage, that would be wonderful. And of course, come on over to energeticprinciples.com and book a personal reading, because consultations are where it's at. We do this one-on-one, and it's just your chart. You and me, your chart. We talk through it. We look at what's ahead. We get into the nitty-gritty, and that's where the magic happens. So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend coming over to energeticprinciples.com and booking your consultation today. All right, everyone. Well, it has been fabulous connecting with you. I wish you the best of luck during this Aries full moon. It's going to be hot. It's going to be fiery, but it's also going to be very straightforward. Aries, you gotta the joke is with any Aries, you gotta hit them over the head with it. And I feel the universe is gonna hit us over the head with it. Hopefully not in a bad way, but things are just gonna be very clear, and we're gonna know where we're gonna be working towards, driving forth with our passion, with our vision, with our strong Mars and Scorpio, and we're gonna do the damn thing. So I wish you all the luck out there, and as always, may the stars be with you.